You guys like my Etsy bestseller video so much that I decided to do a second one. So welcome to 6 things that sell well for me on Etsy. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Andi. I'm a vintage home decor reseller. I sell primarily on Etsy, and then I also have a booth in a vintage shop. So before we jump into the bestsellers, I want to give you a little bit of background on my reselling business. So I have been selling on the Etsy platform for ages, and I focus primarily on vintage home decor that is easy to ship. So I am not a person who likes to ship things that are complicated and large, and so the things that you're gonna see here are very easy to pack and ship. So as we go through each item or category, I'm gonna tell you how much I typically pay for the pieces that I pick up, how much I'm usually reselling them for, and then I can give you an idea on how complicated they are to ship. Because I know there's probably new people watching this. You may never have shipped one of these pieces before, and I can give you an idea on how that process would look and maybe how expensive it would be. Okay, so that's enough background. Let's get into the bestsellers. So the first bestseller I want to talk about are copper trays. These came as a surprise to me. I am a brass girly. If you watch my channel, I sell so much brass. So I started to pick up copper on a whim, and it is doing really well. Anytime I list a copper tray, it sells really, really quickly. If not the week that I list it, then within a couple weeks. So it's a very fast seller for me. The problem is I don't find that often, which is challenging. But when I do, I pick them up. So it can be pieces like this that are definitely handmade, hammered, have a lot of detail. Or it can be pieces like this that are definitely, like this could have been a piece that I'm not sure where it was made. If this was brass, I would be like hands down it was made in India. I don't know if India specializes in a lot of copper, but it has that same look as the copper trays where it has a lot of ornate details and cutouts. So it's either handmade ones like this or more ornate ones like this are what's selling for me in my Etsy shop. Now, one kind of fun thing about the ones that are a little bit more handmade, you can actually see the artist's stamp on it, is they usually will have a little bit more detail on the back about the artisan. So like for this particular one, it talks about who made it, where it was made, the date. And a lot of times when I find copper pieces like this, that type of information will be on the back of it. So that adds kind of the value of the piece because you can see a little bit of history with it. Where with these types that are a little bit more ornate, you don't usually get that level of detail, but definitely take a look at the back when you're looking for these pieces because they're more artisan made, kind of arts and crafts. And so that kind of makes them a little bit more special. And I think that's why they sell really well. So I have some notes I'm gonna reference. So typically when I am picking up the trays, I try to buy them for under 15 bucks. And I'm usually finding them at antique malls. I don't tend to find copper in the thrift store that often. Maybe where you are, you will, but it's very rare for me. So I usually have to go to an antique mall to find copper pieces like that that are just undervalued. And I'm usually paying like no more than 15 bucks for like an individual piece, typically. Now, I have been known to pay up if I think I can get more, but generally speaking, 15 bucks or less is what I'm using or what I'm sourcing those at. Now, to sell them, I can sell them on the low end at $58. I can sell them for $78 plus. It really depends. Sometimes like the bigger ones you can get obviously more money, or pieces like this that have a lot more character and detail, you can get a little bit more money. It really just kind of depends on the individual piece. But a really good flip from $15 to maybe like 78 bucks. That's a really good margin to me, so that's why I always pick them up anytime I see them. So the next bestseller is less of like an individual thing and more like a theme, and that is horse theme stuff. Horse stuff is really doing well for me. Now, it has to be more rustic, cottagecore, like English country horse stuff. It can't be kitschy horse stuff. It needs to like look old, have patina and character. So this, I listed, it sold right away. It's a very cool wood framed copper piece. Horse needle points, I have sold those. I had a horse, like a really cute horse painting that was really interesting, that sold. So I'm just kind of surprised all the people out there that like horse stuff. So anyways, if you're seeing something horse themed, especially if it has like age and character and can fit within those design aesthetics I mentioned, definitely pick it up because it seems to be one of those things that people are looking for. So my next bestseller is Florentine anything. And usually I'm picking up trays like this, like Florentine trays. These are from Italy, made in Italy. They have a lot of gold and old world detail. Anytime I can pick these up, I do, because there's always an audience for this. There's always a buyer. And then even Florentine things like this. This is an organizer. This type of thing, Florentine. There's a lot of stuff made in this particular style that definitely sells. So I just picked this up recently. I actually picked up this beautiful trash can recently. It's amazing how many people are out there looking for Florentine style things. So usually trays are what I'm picking up. Like I said, I've sold a lot of trays. I've sold Florentine boxes. I've sold an easel before, a Florentine easel. They're just pieces that tend to sell. Now you can get these in thrift stores. It's hard. Like this particular one came from Goodwill. It was only $3.99, which was awesome. But I will often get these at antique malls too. Another thing where I'll go to an antique mall to search for if I'm not finding them in my thrift stores. Usually you can find them undervalued there. I tend to try to stick more to the pieces that are a little bit more unusual, like this style you see a lot of. And so it's not going to command as higher prices as something that's a little bit more interesting and unique. And then this colorway, being just the creamy white and the gold, tends to sell a lot faster than the ones that have more color, like the brown and the turquoise like this. Except blue, like I had a really beautiful blue one that sold very quickly. So these are something that I always tend to pick up because they just really do well. And even if they have wear, that old world charm is like part of the appeal of these. An example would be like on here, you can kind of see how the paint is flaking off. I sold a tray that was in really rough shape, frankly, in terms of the finish and the paint, and it sold. So, you know, if you're looking at these, you're like, ooh, is it too flaky? I would say if the integrity of it's still there and the flakiness kind of adds to that charm, then absolutely pick it up. Okay, so back to the notes. So generally speaking, I will pick these up usually for $10 and under. Now, if it's something that's really, truly special, and unique, and I've never seen it before, I usually will look it up on Google or I'll look it up on Etsy to see other listings like it. And if it has a lot of margin, then I'll pick it up. But generally speaking, I'm paying less than $10 a piece for these items. And then I'm pricing them anywhere from $38 to $68 plus. Like $38 are the tiny, like I had a little tray like this. I sold that for I got it for $3. I sold it for $38. To me, that was a good enough margin. And so just think about that when you're picking it up. The smaller pieces obviously are not gonna sell as much, but bigger trays like this are gonna sell for more. Now, these are some of the things that can be tricky to ship just because something like this requires a larger box. Even though it's a flat box, it's a larger box. And so it can be a little bit more expensive to ship like across the country. So something like this could cost me maybe even 15 bucks to ship if it's going from where I am in Oregon all the way to like the East Coast. It could be that expensive, even though it's lightweight, but sometimes something that is wider, even if it's flat, can cost more. So it just really depends. So the tray, any sort of tray can be a little bit more expensive to ship. So you just wanna make sure that you're buying it for the right price and able to sell it for the right price. And at any point, especially for pieces like this that are flat, if you can cut down that box, hot tip, cut down your boxes because you may just save some money. So the next bestseller also originates from Italy, and that is Italian metal pieces, decor pieces. And now I have no good examples of this in my studio space right now because they sell that quick. So this is my own personal tiny representation of it, and it is a little metal easel. And the reason why I'm showing it to you, because this is absolutely a very small version, is because one of the ways you can tell it's Italian metal, just eventually you'll be able to look at it and be like, okay, yeah, that's Italian. Is oftentimes they will have this teeny tiny tag that says Italy, made in Italy on it. Now they're not always there. I pick up Italian pieces that don't have the tag because I know absolutely it was from Italy. But this is one way you can identify when you're looking in the thrift store and you see something that's ornate like this, that's maybe gold, or it can even be painted. You can, pull it off the shelf, look for the tag, and if it has the tag, then you know it's made in Italy. Now, Italian metalwork can be very valuable. So I will sell pieces for well over $100. I had some candelabras, like wall mounted candelabras recently that sold for upwards, I think I sold it for $168. And so it was a big piece, but I did not pay that much money for it. And so I had a huge margin even shipping something that large. One thing nice is these tend to be extremely lightweight. So while the dimensions of them may be bigger and so the price to ship a big piece might be a lot more, they're really lightweight. The metal's lightweight. So that helps with the price of the piece when you're shipping it. So Italian metalwork like this is really hard to find in the thrift store, at least out here. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. We have more mid-century type of stuff in our thrift stores. I know maybe out east, you may actually have more old world items because that's an older part of the country and more traditional decorating is more common out there. But for me, I usually have to go to an antique mall and find the 1 or 2 pieces that may be in the entire antique mall that may be that style that are undervalued. So for big like candelabra or wall mounted like sculpture types, I'm usually picking those up if they're around $25 because I can sell them for $128, $168, like well over $100, approaching $200. So to me, that's a really good margin. For smaller pieces, you know, I'm gonna be picking them up for, I don't know, you know, no more than 10 bucks. I mean, I usually try to source things for 10 and under. That's just generally my mindset. But, you know, obviously I'm willing to pay up because I'm telling you certain pieces you kind of have to. But usually for the big pieces, if I'm gonna sell them for well over $100, $25 or under is absolutely acceptable to me. But for the smaller pieces, you know, 10 and under is what I'm usually picking them up. So the next bestseller for me are handmade boxes. And if you watch my channel, you guys will know this because I am just like constantly surprised by how many varieties of handmade boxes will sell. So they can be simple ones like this that don't have a ton of character, you know, just little details like here, how this is a little bit, you know, raised and has some edging, to extremely ornate boxes like this that are Polish, that are absolutely stunningly beautiful. So it really is across the board. I am picking up all types of boxes now because people seem to really like them. If you spend any time around a small human, you know they love boxes. They like opening the lids, they like putting stuff in boxes. You know, if you have a box around, a kid's gonna grab it. If they're a certain age, they're gonna find it, they're gonna grab it, it's theirs, they're gonna put their stuff in it. And I feel like that love affair of boxes doesn't seem to go away. Not only are they like functional, obviously, to like, you know, corral stuff, put stuff in, they're just fun, but I think people just like boxes. We just like things with lids, I guess. Anytime I'm finding a box at a thrift store that's in really good shape, especially if it's something like arts and crafts or handmade, I'm absolutely picking it up because usually I can get them for $5 or less. Like this one was $5 and then it was also on sale with a coupon. And so this one, now technically I do have to do a teeny bit of repair work on it, but this size is phenomenal because it can fit a remote in it. This could go on a coffee table to be styled with and it's exceptional. It could put tea in it. They're just so useful. So for pieces like this, like even as basic as this, I will pick it up to stuff that's really, really ornate. Now on the topic of ornate boxes, Polish boxes are something that I picked up on a whim at an estate sale ages ago. And you guys gotta watch that video if you haven't. I have 2 parts to that video. But the first time I went to this estate sale, I was so overwhelmed. There's a phrase in the reselling business called junk drunk. And I was junk drunk. I went in there was so much stuff, the prices were good. I lost my mind. I came home with about $500 worth of vintage to resell. And at the time I was like, why did I buy like almost a dozen Polish boxes? And it's because I am that person who never grew up and I love boxes still. And so I was like, okay, well, I like these, someone might like them. And they have sold one right after the other. I just sold my last Polish box. Now I'm on the hunt for Polish boxes. This one I actually didn't pick up at an antique mall, but one of my viewers loved it so much that they said, go back and get it. So I went back and get it and they bought it. So anyways, Polish boxes, you can kind of start to recognize the type of box. So they have very similar carvings, the colors are similar. And then on the bottom, they usually will have a sticker that is on them or they're stamped made in Poland. So anyways, hot tip, you know, look out for Polish boxes because there's definitely a market for these. So yeah, I'm just always amazed. I have painted boxes like with florals, those sell too. So it's really across the board. Boxes. It's just absolutely wild. I had a buyer who bought a box for me. Bless their hearts, they use it for after dinner mints. That's what they told me they bought it for. So, I mean, the opportunity to store stuff in it is endless. I mean, mints was not my first go-to that I would have thought, but that's what they used it for. So I'm like, that's amazing. So I have my notes again, so I just want to make sure. So we talked about handmade boxes, arts and crafts boxes. Oh, Indian boxes, that's the last piece. So carved Indian boxes, while they don't sell for a lot, is another type of box that I do pick up that does sell. It has usually like that bone or shell inlay on the top. I've sold those many times. If I can get them cheap enough, and when I say cheap enough, I'm talking like just a few bucks because they don't sell for a ton, then I usually will pick them up. But those are kind of a, you know, they're out there everywhere. People are seeing them, especially they were very popular when boho was super in. Boho's kind of like going out. So I'm not picking them up as much, but historically speaking, Indian carved boxes can also be a popular seller as well. Okay, so looking at my notes, I have just one more bestseller to share with you. The final bestseller are small original art pieces. So the reason why I think these do so well is one, they're a very manageable size. Most people have a space in their home for something of this size. That's not the case for bigger pieces. And so I think people, when they look at them, like, okay, I have an idea of where I'm gonna put this right away, rather than having to like decorate a room around a very large piece. And the other reason why these are so popular has nothing to do with the size and just the fact that it is an original piece of art, maybe art assigned in the bottom. And so people are always wanting to get original art on their walls in their homes at an affordable price, and small art is a way to do that. Now I can find small pieces of art like this at my thrift stores. Usually they price them at, I don't know, I would say $5 and under, which is great because the margin is really good. And this is an original piece for that cheap. It's just like crazy. So I will pick up any framed original art that's interesting that I see. Even if it's unframed, you know, a canvas, even canvas board, frankly, any type of art, whether it's framed or not, sells well for me. So the fact that, you know, a piece can be unframed is absolutely not a deal breaker. I still will pick it up. But if it is 5 or less, I'm absolutely getting it. Now, pieces that are a little bit bigger or may have a little bit more of like a cult following, this is a paint by number. People love paint by numbers. Then I'll pay a little bit more for each piece. Like this one was 16 bucks. And so I'm listing it for a lot higher. And so I don't mind investing, you know, a little bit more in a piece that I think I'm going to get more money on. So looking at my notes, I'm usually pricing these for really small, maybe unframed pieces like 48 bucks, and then larger pieces like this, 70 bucks or more. It really just depends on the piece. And that's the problem with art. It's really like, it's really subjective because it really depends on what the subject matter is, how good the artist is. Anytime I can find a moody floral painting, a painting that has like bright colored flowers but dark backgrounds, those tend to go quicker than maybe a traditional punchy floral. So I will price moody florals more than I will a traditional floral. So there's just ways to kind of finesse the pricing based on the subject matter. But generally speaking, like $48 to $78 is what I am, you know, pricing small pieces like this at. And then I'm usually buying them for $10 and under. Again, that's like my sweet spot when I'm looking for things out thrifting, because I can mark things up, you know, quite a bit higher on Etsy. If it's 10 and under and I like it and I think it's gonna sell, I'm usually picking it up. Okay, so those are my best sellers. Hopefully you find them helpful. Just know many of the things I talked about that sell well for me on Etsy actually also sell well for me in my booth. So that may not be the case for you, because what sells well in an antique mall or a vintage mall really depends on your market and what you're finding there, what your customer's expecting. And so oftentimes when I'm selling online also kind of aligns with what I'm selling in my booth space. But just know, like, these things may also work for you there. So if you're not an Etsy seller or an online seller, you may dabble in these pieces because there definitely is an audience for them. So last time I did this video, the comment section was amazing. People were sharing so many good pieces of information, what was selling for them on their Etsy shop, on their eBay store, what they were selling at their booth, you know, what was selling for them that I mentioned, what wasn't selling. It was just a treasure trove of tips and recommendations. So I highly recommend you go down below and check out those comments. And also, if you have anything to share as a reseller, please go down below and comment and tell me what's best selling for you, because we all can really learn from each other. Okay, so that's all I have to share with you today. Hopefully you liked the video, found it helpful and useful. If you want me to do more of these, you know, let me know in the comments. Obviously, give me your feedback on what's selling for you, like I said, because that is so interesting for me to read. And if you're looking for more thrifting and decorating content between my haul videos here on YouTube, make sure to check me out on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much for watching today, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Take care.